the utmost importance that families of young children get early intervention services promptly and as early as possible. Having a young child with a disability is a profoundly disorienting and disempowering experience for parents, as well as potentially a very distressing one. The role of the services is to try and help parents regain control over their lives, to learn what they might be able to do to meet their child's needs and to get their family back on track. So the role of the professionals is to provide emotional support for the parents, to provide them with information about services, to provide them with information about what they can do to work with their child, to identify the child's needs and the family needs, and to act as advocates if necessary. If that kind of service is provided to families early on, then it helps prevent families from getting into difficult situations with the child, starting off on the wrong foot. It helps the family build positive relationships with their child so that the child's core relationships are solid and secure. It helps them start to interact with the child in ways that are going to promote the child's development. It helps the family establish routines which are going to work for the child and themselves, and generally works to reduce the stress levels through providing emotional support and giving the parents a clear sense of what it is that they can do. And we know from evidence that if we do that, if that's provided, then children progress, families are stabilised, and we get better outcomes in the long run.
My name is Leonie White. I have 3 children. My youngest daughter Caitlin was born with Down syndrome, and she attended an early intervention service at EPIC, which is an education program for infants and children. And those early days are just so hard. You don't know what you're doing. You're not led into the right directions. You're not given the advice that perhaps you're needed. We stumbled into early intervention. I received a phone call when Caitlin was about 6 weeks old to say, from a parent of a child with a disability. I'd never met this woman before. She was a very, very distant friend of a friend, but this woman suggested EPIC and said, early intervention is what you need. You need to get your daughter there. And about 4 months of age, I then went to EPIC. I remember being told, you really can't assume she's going to learn anything on her own. She's going to need a lot of help, a lot of work to walk, to talk, to get through those basic milestones. And from about 4 months, we then were officially on a waiting list for early intervention, and we sort of attended monthly from that point onwards. And she was getting some sort of, short physio, short teaching. But it wasn't until she was 10 months old that we actually received weekly sessions from EPIC.
And we did receive early intervention when I think she was about 18 months old. And that was just fabulous. We had a wonderful service with Michelle at Uncle Bob's, and for us it just felt like coming home. It was such a beautiful community, and they were just so encouraging and supportive. And it was wonderful to be able to finally get some therapy for Sophia, and also for her to have social opportunities and participate in a play group. But I think not so much early on, but as we sort of went along, I felt like it really wasn't enough, that it was great to have it, but just having those 2 hours a week just wasn't enough.
I think in terms of having access to early intervention would have stopped a lot of this stress, and to be honest, I feel like I lost a lot of confidence as a parent in parenting my son, because I felt like I always wasn't providing for him and giving him what he needed. So, and that impacted on the family significantly. It impacted on my ability to manage the family or just to enjoy the time. I just feel like those early years with my son, I can't recall much enjoyment from that at all. And I think that had any service been provided at an earlier time, then I would have felt like I was supporting, providing for him, and I think then I would have got a lot more
enjoyment out of that time, as a parent and as a family.
Yeah, I agree. We had some pretty torrid times as a family, just trying to deal with the idea of a disability for your child, but let alone not being able to really contact anybody. And I think it would have been much better if we'd had some direction and just feeling as if we were in control of things a bit more, because we just felt like everywhere we went it was out of control, and long waiting lists, and just constantly trying to advocate for your child but just not getting anywhere.
I think we were very lucky because Uncle Bob also does a fabulous job at supporting the family, so not just providing the therapy for the child but supporting the family. But again, there's finite resources, so as much as you might want to be able to do that, and that it's really important, because after all, it's the families that are the child's first therapists. You know, we need more of that, a lot more of that. And yeah, I have a lot of contact with other families through my work, and yeah, they all say a similar thing.
What we needed really was something, somebody we could ring, or somebody we could phone, or a specific website we could look at, or some sort of support that would mean that you could feel as if you were doing the right thing, or to reassure you that things would be better soon, or not even that, but just some support, or even a support group of some sort. It was a long time afterwards that we found out about My Time and this, the early intervention services and things like that. It was well over a year, 18 months before any of that sort of came on stream, and we just felt very isolated and confused as a family, and it was very stressful. So
yeah, I agree. I think what we needed was early intervention, because they're saying that that's what you need for a child, is the early intervention. The earlier the better. We didn't get
that's
it.
So true.
It become so late that I think I almost missed early intervention. And just to see the development of my son in the last year, now that he's just started school, if you had had that intervention back when he was 2 and 3 and 4, his development would have been so much more now. Had we had the early intervention when it was early, that would have been a completely different story. I'm pretty confident in believing that.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
You know, I had 2 small children, preschool aged, that I needed to be caring for as a full-time mum for them as well. And it used to break my heart to see the time that I couldn't spend with them, the things I couldn't do with them, the places I chose not to go to because they were too hard, and I just couldn't manage 3 children in that environment on my own when one had special needs. And just to have had more services in place to actually support us through our daily life, and to do the things we needed to do, to go to the supermarket, to one of the things that was hardest for me was to go and pick up my children from school with Caitlin. It was very difficult getting in and out of school. It used to take me half, and it still is.
Like chronic tennis elbow, because
Exactly.
I have to physically,
Yes.
I don't even know if we had to do
And
much longer.
It would take me at least half an hour, I would say, to get in and out of school. And just to have had support, and I did have support through early intervention to try strategies of, going through. But we really need people to give us those tangible skills that we can then implement within our lives to make a difference and make it easier. And the other people working with our children need those skills as well, especially if they've had no experience of children with additional needs. The other services that we need, there's needs for more respite and all those sorts of things, and you can open huge cans of worms as to the things that families need, but families need a hell of a lot of support. And I go back to that statement that was said to me that I can't assume that she's going to learn anything. I don't think governments should assume that we can do it all, that we have the capacity to cater for our children's needs at all times. We are parents and we do the best we can. We need help. We need services. We need a little bit of money. We need all of those things to be able to enable our family life to function as any other family, and not to be totally fighting, going over hurdles, facing barriers, trying to get through the barrier, try again, another application, another submission. Negative processes that always have to highlight the things that our children do not do well. All of those things just continually remind us that we are in a different world of disability. It's not an inclusive world. our children, need that extra bit, and we have to work that bit harder to actually supply them with what our other children are actually receiving.
At the moment, we've not only got waiting lists, so we haven't got sufficient places for all the people who need them, but even those who are receiving the full amount of service are not receiving services at a level which enables all their needs to be met. The gap between the kinds of funding that is received by children in early childhood intervention and those that are received, say, by children in primary school is considerable, and therefore the professional support that's provided to families is not nearly as extensive as it could be, which means that some families are not going to be able to get all the support they need to be able to help them meet their child's needs. And that's a situation we really should not be allowing and that we need to address. The government, to its credit, has been making efforts in recent years to both increase the number of places that are available and to increase the per capita amount available for each child. However, there is still a considerable shortfall, and that's what we believe needs to be addressed as a matter of urgency at this point in time.
Access to support from early childhood intervention professionals is crucial for the well-being of the whole family. Families need help to identify and address needs, develop the skills to support their child's developmental needs, manage the emotional demands of caring for a child with additional needs, coordinate and access services, and advocate for their child. Families need intensive information and support right from the start.